Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Your Next Business Bestie. I'm Jen Waybor Hart, and with me this week is my very good friend Megs. Hi Megs, how are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, Jen.
Yeah, it's so funny. We were talking off air, and I had to hit record so that we would stop just talking and filling up our whole hour because we could talk and talk and talk. But Megs and I met just over a year ago through a local yoga studio that I teach at. But it's really been the last couple months that our friendship has bloomed. And I'm so appreciative of our friendship. Just side note, you're one of my absolute favorite humans. Our daughters, it's funny, Megs has two daughters and they are 5 and 7, and Elena's about to be 6. So they are like the perfect age for play dates. So that's been beautiful to see. But Megs, tell everybody what it is you do.
Yeah, thank you. And ditto, you are one of my favorite people as well. Okay, so what do I do? I'm a professional organizer and I work specifically with late diagnosed women with ADHD. And I found that passion last year after leaving the corporate world. I also started a podcast called Organizing an ADHD Brain, where I talk about different tips and tricks on organizing, but I also talk to a lot of people with ADHD who are finding ways to thrive in life and working with their brain instead of against it. So, I have so much passion for understanding my own ADHD brain better because the more I understand how I work and how I operate, the more grace I can give myself and the more I can help people understand that they're allowed to give themselves grace as well. So it's not necessarily just like be organized and your life will be better. It's okay, being organized is just one of the ways to have a little bit of ease on your brain. Things that can get really cluttered when we're constantly overthinking and ruminating on things. And when we also have a lot of stuff around us and we don't have places for anything to go, that clutters us even more. So there's a lot to be said for the environment that we surround ourselves in. And the more I immerse myself in the world of organizing, the more passionate I get around it. And the more I just want to help people with ADHD understand that just because society tells us that we're not organized doesn't mean that we can't be organized. In fact, there's so many different ways that we can. It's just about finding a place to start.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, I've learned so much from you in even the short months. And this is cool because I don't think I've had someone on the podcast that I've worked with on the professional side as recently as you and I. So it's been 2 weeks from tomorrow, I think, that you spent 5 hours in my house helping me move. Literally, we moved my office space to where our dining room used to be, and we put my dining room in the garage, which was it just has been life changing. And that sounds so simple, but I'm sitting here in what is now my office space, and it has just created such a shift in my productivity to have a space that's my own. My desk still would be considered by some cluttered. Like I have my skeletons and my crystals, but like they're all things that bring me joy and help me be more productive. And you have helped me realize that my version of organized is not the same as anyone else's, and that's okay. Like I get to decide what is organized. um but I think the biggest thing is my damn spice cabinet. So we spent three, actually it turned into 4 hours, our first session organizing together my kitchen. And I told you beforehand, I was like, the spice cabinet and we fight. And because my cabinets in my apartment are narrow, but I think 16 inches deep or something ridiculous and impossible to keep organized. And one, you helped me throw away all the stuff that need to be thrown away, which we all need to do that. But it
Mm,
was something so simple. You wrote the names of the spices on the tops of them. So even though I cannot see all the way to the back, even though I still hate the cabinet, I don't lose my patience trying to find what I'm looking for. It's alphabetized. I can look at the top and I can grab what I need. And again, it's these simple things that just make like cooking is so much more pleasant because I know where things are. So just thank you. Thank you for that. How did you get your business started? I know a little bit about this. I know you left the corporate world, but what did your business look like when you started?
oh my gosh, not like it is now. I talk a lot on my podcast and other podcasts about how when I first became a professional organizer, I I had been decluttering my own home for so long and organizing my own home in different ways that mirrored something out of Pinterest. I wanted things to look perfect. And I thought that that is what I needed to do in order to be a professional in this world. But after not just working with myself, but working with friends and family and clients, I've realized that it's so much more than that. So I started my business because I found that having less puts a lot less pressure on myself and it allows me to make room for the things that I love in my life. And it allows my clients to do that too. And so now I have pivoted to help people find what their own version of organized looks like. And so, for example, I love when I get home from grocery shopping, I love taking everything out of the package and putting it in these little baskets I have. But for you, I asked you, do you want to take things out of the packaging or do you want to leave things in the packaging? You just want to be able to see it. And you told me you're like, "I don't have time for that." And I was like, "Cool. So do this." And I told showed you how to just rip the sides off the packaging so it's easy to grab things still. Because when we have barriers in our life, it makes life harder to live. And barriers in this case is just like the little flaps on the cardboard boxes for us to actually see what we have. It could be that there's one bar left in this box, but if all the four flaps are on there, you're not necessarily going to see that. And then it makes shopping harder because now you've got to go and move everything to find out what you need and things like that. So I love to ask questions. And what I find fascinating about ADHD is just the fact that, like, we see things in a different way. We come up with solutions, and after we work and dabble in a couple solutions, we start to evolve from that. Our brain works so fascinatingly well to just see patterns and understand things in different ways. So now I understand different questions to ask my clients to really help them understand what kind of systems they can set up in their own life to make life easier for them. And that is kind of how my business has evolved. And even more so in the last couple months, I had kind of mentioned just allowing more room for the passions we have in life. People with ADHD have a lot of things they're passionate about. We get excited about a lot of things because especially when it comes to creativity, there's so much that we want to get our hands on. In fact, I have a rule that I'm not allowed to adopt hobbies from clients. Like one of my favorite clients, she knits, and I was like, "Oh, that looks like fun." And I'm like, "Megan, no, you are not allowed to take up knitting right now. You have too many other things you really like." And but I absolutely love being able to create spaces where it's easier to get to the creative spaces that we want to enjoy, like knitting, like planting flowers, like gardening, things like that, so that it's easier for us to do those things where without there being so many barriers involved. And
Yeah.
so there's all kinds of things I do in my business now. I'm a coach, so I can coach you virtually from afar. I have a 3-month program where I teach you not only about your brain and what kinds of things are getting in your way, but also how to be more organized in an ADHD way. I also have a one-on-one decluttering session where we work on Zoom together. And then I also do in-person organizing, not as much as the digital stuff, but it's been incredible to see how my business has grown in almost a year. I'm about a month away from hitting the 1-year mark.
I love that. Yeah, a couple things there. First, like I told you when you walked in 2 weeks ago, I was like, RJ and I have talked about moving my desk into the dining room space. And you looked at me, you're like, okay, let's do it. And it was so simple, but like you give people permission to organize their home in the way it needs to be for them. Like my desk had been in my bedroom for the last 6 years. I had not had a designated space, and I had a little bit of guilt around like taking over the dining room as my space. But I work from home 5 days a week. My husband, I mean, he's gone for 3 weeks right now. Like I deserve to have this space that is mine. And like you just gave me permission that it was okay to do this. But also in turn, now there's this big corner in our bedroom that has nothing in it. Well, it has some cat beds in it currently. But they've kind of taken over. But that's gonna become a reading nook is what I envision for it when I find the right chair. And the past few years, I've been like, "You know what? I'd love a comfy reading chair, somewhere to just curl up and read." And we haven't had the space, and now we have the space, and I can create that little corner where work isn't looking at me. Like, I my desk is around the corner, so when I can actually put work away, and as an entrepreneur, that is really, really hard for us. Like, there's a quote that like when you're an entrepreneur, you work your business from eyes open to eyes closed, and that is true to a large extent, even when we don't mean to. It's there's little things
Yeah.
in our brain all the time. Um, I think the other thing when we first met on a more professional level, and I found out you were an organizer. I envisioned, the person coming into my house, organizing my home, and then me having to figure out where everything was. So, I mean, my brother is incredibly organized with physical stuff. I can organize a computer and a system all day long. Organizing physical is really hard for me. So my brother a few times has organized my kitchen, or even growing up. I was just telling this story the other day. My brother cleaned and organized my room in exchange for me writing his papers in high school. Sorry if any of our high school teachers listen to this, um, but then there was this whole learning curve of figuring out where my brother put things. And he put things places that made sense to him. And my kitchen has been a huge struggle, has always been. And I will say for the first time, my kitchen functions how I need it to function. And it's something as small as like putting away the dishes from the dishwasher. And not that that's ever a joyful task by any means, but I have dinner going, I'm putting away the dishes, and it's so much simpler. It's easier. And I remember I have some pictures of in the process. You had me empty all of the cabinets out, and I was like, "Okay, Megs, like we only have 4 hours. Like what the hell?" And I remember we had like 30 minutes left. I was like, "There's no way in hell all this shit is going to fit in the cabinets." And it did. And like my plates are not stacked in one giant stack the way I thought they had to be. And again, it sounds so simple, but you do such a beautiful job at helping people see how their spaces can work for them. Um, Another example is Elena has this little corner now. It's an overflowing basket of stuff that is hers, but that she's not allowed to have in her room. We had a gel pen incident where she decided one morning when RJ and I were still sleeping to open up every gel pen, and it was curiosity, but she opened up every single one all over her bedroom floor. So gel pens and markers are not in her room currently, but we have this basket in this space and it's overflowing. And is it Pinterest worthy? No. If someone walked in my house, they'd be like, "Oh, like there's a little cluttery pile there." But Elena knows that her stuff goes in that corner. When she's done with her tablet, when she's done coloring, it goes in that corner. And that gets into the rules that you help people create. So, can you talk a little bit about the rules that you help in the organizing process? Because I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's cool about that basket, and I remember saying to you, is okay, we don't have like a solution for this right now where everything fits. And that's okay. This is a progressive movement. And something I have to do, especially working with clients, is keep blinders on because I'm like, ooh, let's work in this space now. And I get excited, right? I still have ADHD, it's not cured. So I have rules for myself. I have to say, this can't be touched right now because we're doing something else. So the rule there is, ultimately, if Lainey has something, she's going to put it back in that space. And eventually, we're going to get to the point where that stuff all has a space and it's not just in a basket, right? But you get to decide what rules you establish for yourself. And so, one thing I like to start people off with is give your scissors a place to go. So, find a spot for your scissors. Designate a spot for it. You can get a container for it. You don't need a container. You could even use like tape, like painter's tape, and write scissors on it. Put it at the bottom of a drawer and then communicate with your family. This is where the scissors go. And then that's your rule is that no matter what, all of the scissors in the household go back to this drawer. And then you can prove to yourself and to the family, and the family can help you by saying, okay, we can stick with this. This is something that we can do. And it's funny because I posted a picture of my junk drawer the other day and I've got like 7 pairs of scissors in my drawer. And someone was like, who needs 7 pairs of scissors? And I'm like, no one. But at the same time, I've proved to myself and my family that we can keep all the scissors here. And eventually you can start to declutter from there what you don't necessarily need anymore. A pair of scissors broke on me the other day, and I was like, "Well, okay, well, there's 1 pair of scissors I can't use anymore."
Good thing I have 6
Um,
more.
right? Exactly. So,
It's fine. It's
um,
fine.
I think, what's neat about organizing is that when you establish rules and you decide what works for you and what doesn't work for you, establishing these rules or boundaries, so to speak, help you stick within your own parameters. And so, like, I was organizing with one of our friends' daughters the other day. She's amazing. She was so sweet. And I was giving her all these tips and tricks. But one thing she would do when she would clean her room is stick everything behind her couch. And so, like, I took a video of it. We took everything out from behind the couch. And so we then decided to put our sewing machine back there because it's one thing, it can be put back there and it's easy to take out and then put back. And I was like, but what's a rule now? Now that the sewing machine belongs here, what can't go back there anymore? She's like, anything else. I'm like, exactly. Right. So now that's your rule. As you're cleaning your room, it's easy to hide things and put things where they fit instead of where they go. And so when you start to set boundaries for yourself in your own home, it makes your life a little bit easier to live. And so it's pretty fascinating when you start to establish those rules, what helps you. So, like, what's a rule that you have in your life now that you've started to adopt a more organized lifestyle?
I mean, no more coffee cups in my life, which is funny. We went through all my coffee cups, but you've already kind of touched on it, but tearing the sides off the boxes, it has made such a difference in Elena packing her lunch. But more than that, she's not even quite 6 yet. So I'm not opening a box to find that there's no more granola bars and she didn't tell me, which can be really frustrating when you're trying to meal plan and you're busy and you work and you're a full-time parent and all the things. So all the boxes get the sides torn off. RJ brought home like a huge Pringles box. And I was like, where the hell am I going to put this? But I found room. And because I tore off the sides, she could just pull out the whole box really easily and grab one and put it back. So again, not Pinterest worthy looking, but it's so functional. So the sides of the boxes got torn off. Um, and I think also it's funny, I'm staring and looking at my thing of pens, which I still have a lot of pens, but we got rid of so many pens 2 weeks ago. And I remember I had this moment because like I had some nicer pens, but you were like, what's your favorite pen? I was like, I don't care. I'm not one of those people like just give me a blue ink is all I care about. And you said something, okay, so you're like, okay, so what's with all the pens with black ink? And it was like, oh yeah, I can get rid of the pens that I don't use. Like there's a like it felt wasteful, but like there's donations and you can like there's so much you can do with the stuff you don't need anymore. I think overall you've just given me permission to get rid of the stuff that doesn't serve me anymore. You also touched on this, but putting things where they fit. I find myself pausing to making sure that I'm not putting something somewhere just because it fits. And my mom was here in June and she got a thing of pancake mix. And when I got back from my honeymoon, it was sitting on the coffee cup shelf. And she's like, well, it fit there. And it was this, I text you. And I was like, this is where it came from. And it's like there's no shame in it. But I was raised in like, oh, it fits. It can go there. And grocery shopping now, it doesn't stress me out to go see what we have in the cabinets anymore, but also I actually go check instead of being like, oh, it'll be way too much work to go check if we have a can of green beans. I'll just buy another one. And then, we end
Mhm.
up with 3 bags of chia seeds. So I don't know that it's besides like the tearing off the sides, I don't know that there's like specific rules. It's just an overall mindset that you've helped me with. Um, and I'm sure we'll have more and more rules as we go along. But my desk, I would say, is one. The top drawer, you put in a label of the things that belong in the top drawer, and all of my cords are labeled. And I remember when you first started labeling when you were here, I was like, oh yeah, like things don't like I know that's sugar, right? Like I know that's a thing of sugar, but there's just shift and like, oh yeah, that's labeled as sugar. That's sugar. That's the only thing that's there. And it just creates a more peaceful environment overall, just to know where things are supposed to go. I follow a couple ADHD people on TikTok, and two big things I've learned about myself. One is if I can't see it, it doesn't exist, which that was one big thing I told you as soon as we started working together. I was like, if I cannot see it, it doesn't exist. So, like, this girl on TikTok, she doesn't put anything in the drawers in her fridge because she can't see it. It doesn't exist. It just goes there to die. And you set up my cabinets really well. So it's not layered of things. Like everything's up front and there's a lot of empty space, but I know what's there and everything actually exists. Like there's not three things of pasta that are stacked in the back and I have no idea that they're there. And then the other thing is if it's what is the phrase? Don't put it down, put it away. That's another one that there's a girl on TikTok that that's her mantra, and her TikToks are just don't put it down, put it away. Don't put it down, put it away. So if it's going to take me less than a minute to just take care of the thing that I see, then I just take care of the thing that I see. And all of this sounds so simple. It's not easy though. It's a whole shift in our day-to-day life. Um, and I love you just talked about Aria. I love that you work with kids. I am so excited. We're going to do a session this month where you work with Elena to organize her room. And I started talking about it, but what difference do you see in working with people on their spaces instead of organizing for them? And did you ever just organize for people instead of with them?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, I mean, when I first started, people said, come in and organize a space. And I'm like, okie dokie, right? And I would go in and I organized it the way that I thought it should be organized. And I still asked a lot of questions. But the thing is that as I'm organizing, I've got 18 more questions that come up because I want to understand how they're living their life. And I would talk to other organizers and ask them, do you work with your clients or do they just have you come in? And in a lot of cases, they were like, well, a lot of people just want us to come in. So that's what we do. And so I thought that was kind of the status quo and what I should be doing as well. But then I decided that it's just not a way that I want to live. It's not I have found that when I go into people's spaces and I organize it for them, it's not doing them justice because just like you said, you've had spaces organized for you before, but now you have to teach yourself how to live completely different because someone put things away in a way that you don't understand. Now, things could stay more organized for a little while, but then I've heard these organizers complain specifically about people with ADHD on how they'll do something for someone and then they're going to come back a couple months later and it's all undone. And so when I heard that, I'm like, well, then you're not doing it right. There's something missing here. So when I work one on one with people, we are working together to really understand how you live so that we can make things work for you instead of against you. And I just love asking questions like, okay, so how often do you bake? Tell me about that, right? How often do you make coffee? How many, like before you even look at your coffee mugs, tell me how many coffee mugs do you think realistically should live in your house? And from there, then we get to start to make decisions like, okay, well, you have 25 coffee mugs. So let's talk through this, right? You told me that four is enough for you. Is
Yeah.
that realistic? So let's talk through these different aspects of things. I've had also people that tell me to organize without decluttering. And decluttering is one of the first aspects of organizing. You must declutter to get to the point of organization. And I've found that a lot of people want me to just come in, offer them all of these products, and then make it look beautiful. But the thing is that without decluttering first, we don't actually know what you need. So, just like with your pantry, we took everything out because we're going to get rid of the things that are expired. And truthfully, the things that are expired, either they were hidden so you couldn't see them, or they were things that you bought that you never used, which means that you're probably never going to use it in the future. You don't need to replace it. That goes with spices, that goes with like chia seeds, kind of just depending on how much you use them, but when you get to the point that you see only the things that you use, it just becomes easier. So I've and decluttering and organizing, it's a constant. It's something that you will continue to do as you adopt a more organized lifestyle to the degree that you decide. So when I go and I organize my pantry now, I always start by emptying everything out. I take a look at all of the expiration dates, and I start to think through some of the things that I kept last time. So there was one time that I had like pecans and I had like these sliced almonds and craisins and things like that. And I was like, oh, let me put these all in cute little jars. It'll look so pretty. But guess who never used any of those for the next couple months? So now they're sitting and taking up precious space in my pantry, but not actually getting used. I kept them because I thought, well, maybe I'll bake with them, but guess who doesn't bake? Me. I did make a cake for my daughter's birthday, and uh, my 7-year-old looks at my 5-year-old and she's like, Cora, I just want you to know that mommy tried really hard on this. And she did the
Love
best
your
that she
girls.
could. And I went to go post it on social media, and my husband was like, "Maybe don't, because people may not trust your creativity anymore." And I'm like, I did, I did, um, I did spray it with sparkle spray, so I feel like it turned out really well in the end. Anyways, I don't bake very often,
That's
but I have some
hilarious.
stuff, like, just in case. But the truth is I don't need all these extra things. And when it comes down to it, if I were to go to bake, how much would it cost for me to replace sliced almonds if that's what I'm going to be baking with? So I think when we go into our own homes and look at all of the stuff, we get distracted by all of these different things in front of us. But when we start to really understand what elevates our life in the moment and what we actually need, we can simplify things that make it easier to be able to access that stuff. And I even now with my daughter, I ask her when I'm making a list for groceries. I didn't start by just saying, like, she needs to help out with groceries. It started because she started telling me what we needed in our pantry and in our fridge because I have things in certain places now. So now I am actively saying, "Hey, Shar, what do we need?" And she'll go and look. She's like, "Oh, I really like the," and it's cool because I find out what she likes too. My mom bought she was here last week and she bought these little things of applesauce, and my daughter was really enjoying them. She's like, "I really like these and they're cinnamon." I was like, "I don't even know where those came from, but that's a great idea." So I bought them because she's telling me what she wants and what she needs, and it's a collaborative effort. And one of my favorite stories is when one of my clients who I worked one-on-one with her in her kitchen, and she told me the other day that she actually goes in there to get inspired now, because if there's another part of her house that feels overwhelming, she'll go to her kitchen first because she knows that things have a place. She'll start there, and then it'll inspire her to go to another place to get things in order, which I was like, "Yes, that's
Love
so
that.
cool." But she told me when we first did her pantry, she loves pasta, and her family, they cook a ton of pasta. She is a dietitian and she cooks a ton, but we decanted all of her pasta and we got these really cool containers for it. And she told me that one of the first nights that her son saw it, he got so excited to pick the pasta that they were going to use that night. Which is so cool because it
Yeah.
gets them included in life and what we're doing, and it takes the overwhelm out of it because you can clearly see what you have to use. I don't even remember the question that you asked me. That is how far
I don't
I've gotten
either.
on this tangent.
I don't either. It doesn't matter. What's funny though, a side note, a cupcake note. Elena's birthday is in 2 weeks. We're having her birthday party. Your girls are coming. Last night I decided I'm going to attempt to make cupcakes this weekend, and I also do not bake. My husband's been gone for 3 weeks, and I was messaging my best friend. I was like, "Yep, he's gonna come home, and I'm gonna make him try these cupcakes, and we're gonna see what happens." Because I am not a baker. And my nephew is allergic to milk and eggs, dairy and eggs. So I have to attempt vegan cupcakes. So I will
Okay.
keep you updated, but I think it's going to be disastrous. I'm not a baker. Say I love to cook. Absolutely love to cook. But like I remember you asking me, how often do you bake? Because we have a thing of flour, and I was like, that can go in the back. Like I will remember that's there, but we're not bakers around here. Um,
Yeah.
but where does your spark come from to keep like, because entrepreneurship's hard, and you left the corporate world, you let go of that safety net, like which I've done recently, and you're out on your own. What keeps you going when being self-employed's hard?
Yeah. You know, my mindset helps a lot, right? And I've always had a pretty positive mindset, but I worked with a friend of mine a couple well, probably when I first started my business. I had gone to a couple networking events and I won a free coaching session with this woman who actually used to work at the same corporate entity as me. And she coaches people on their purpose. And she asked me some amazing questions. And at the end of it, I walked away and I'm like, I really want to help people believe in themselves. And I just really want to help people understand that even though they've been told something their whole life, it doesn't mean that they have to be that way. You are who you believe you are. And if someone helps you understand these beautiful things that you can achieve in life, then you can achieve so much more than you ever thought possible. So, helping people believe in themselves is one of my greatest passions. I also worked with a career coach last year. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say it's also one of your biggest strengths.
Oh, thank you.
Keep going though.
And I worked with a career coach last year and it was fascinating because when I first started working with her, I was like, how much more money can I get in the corporate world, right? Like how much, I was
Yeah,
so
yeah.
money driven. I was like, this is my salary now. I want to be at least at here. And that was my focus. But after working with her and figuring it out for myself, I realized I wanted more freedom and I wanted more passion in my life. And so what keeps me going is my girls, really, is just like them being able to see me achieve my own dreams and do a podcast and talk about organizing. It's really fun to hear them say like my mom organizes or my mom does ADHD.
Mom does ADHD. That's really
I mean,
funny. That's
they hear
really
me talk
funny.
about it so much, but like
Yeah,
they don't know what it is.
yeah.
But it's been so incredible to get to the point, but back to the career coach, she, taught me manifestation, and then after we talked about manifestation, I actually went and got certified in a course to teach manifestation, and it's so much more than just, like, closing your eyes and saying, "Oh, I really want $1,000,000." It's more of, like, changing the underlying beliefs that you have about yourself to get to the point where you want to be and to get to a lifestyle that you want to live. And so now I am living this life where I've decided, despite everything out there that says otherwise, that I want to live a life where I don't feel overwhelmed, where I don't feel like I'm racing against the clock, where I get to spend time with my kids, where I get to spend time with my husband, where we get to make memories now and we don't have to wait until retirement because I really want to live my life every single day. And that's so important to me. And so when I help other people believe in themselves, I feel like I do get to live my life so well. And I say all the time, I haven't replaced my income in the corporate world yet. But every single day, I take steps toward that. But because that's not my main goal is to help people. It's what keeps me going every single day. And then, of course, I have an incredibly supportive husband. My kids are incredibly supportive. So there's a lot that goes into it. But, I can't say that my mind doesn't ever go to oh gosh, maybe I should just go back and get a corporate job. But I'm like, I just wouldn't be happy. And I know that.
Yeah.
There's so much about that life. I don't think that anyone could give me the life that I want in the corporate world. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be working in the corporate world. I learned so much in that world, how to speak and how to lead and how to oh gosh, I made so many friends. It was incredible. And now I'm on the other side of that. And so I'm moving forward.
Something I've been saying lately is we get to live a joy-based life as entrepreneurs. And again, nothing against those that work a corporate job. Absolutely not. And there are big changes happening in the world of work that are making the corporate side of things a lot happier place to be. But I'm right there with you. I've never worked in like a really, really corporate job. I've worked for small businesses, and this is my first week. We're recording this. This is my first week that I don't have that anymore in the last five
Yes.
years. And the freedom this week. I mean, Monday, I did not feel well. I was run down, and I thankfully only had one meeting on my schedule, and I curled up in my bed and I read, and I just took the time because I knew I couldn't put my best energy into anything that day. So I just took care of myself. And if I worked a corporate office, I would have had to rally and get to the office and get the shit done. And I just got to take care of myself. Um, but something you mentioned too is supportive partner. That's it can be everything. I mean,
Yeah.
my ex, when I would sign a new client, he would be like, "Oh, great, so you have less time for us." That was his reaction when I signed it. I don't think I've ever told you that. Yeah. He saw it as a negative for his life when I signed more clients. Whereas I'll never forget it. RJ and I were long distance for a short time, and I flew to Maine to move him and Elena out here. And we had like the weekend to get him packed, say bye to everybody, and hit the road. And the night I got there, I was like, I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna have to do some work. Like, there's things that have to be done on certain days, and I have to get this done. And I remember he was like, okay. And
Hmm.
he was like, we'll curl up on the couch, you'll work, we'll throw a movie on. He's like, I just want to be around you. Of course, I'm not gonna stop you from doing what you need to do. And that's when I was like, okay, this is what I've been waiting for. Especially when you're an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, because especially people who have never worked this life, it can be really hard to understand. But having a supportive partner and your kids getting excited about your business, Elena has no idea what I do. She thinks I just sit on the computer and I don't even know. Um, I told her I quit my job, and she goes, "You quit your job? Like, we're never gonna get a house."
Oh,
Like, I was like, like I still have my business and that's what I do most of the time. She's like, oh, okay. So we'll get a house someday. And I was like,
oh,
yes,
sweet
yes, we'll get
girl.
a house someday. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine living this life any way else into the money mindset, which we talked a little bit offline about this too, in the corporate job, in the 9 to 5, whatever. Same, like how much more money can I make next year? I need to ask for a raise. How many hours, if you're hourly, can I work overtime this week? Versus in the business, of course we want to make money. Of course, but like it is such a beautiful exchange of energy for that financial support versus just grinding to get it. Like we're getting to do something that we're passionate about and that we love, and that's how we're paying our bills. And it's just such a beautiful opportunity. And I can't imagine doing it any other way at all.
Yeah. And it just reminds me of so Jen is doing my social media, which is amazing because it's been such a thorn in my side for so long. But you do it so beautifully, and you do it with so much heart and passion behind it that it makes me feel like you really care about my business. Even to the point where you're sending me different ideas about things we haven't even talked about yet. And I'm sending you ideas about like, "Oh, look at this. Look at this social media information," right? Like it's really cool because we get to bounce things off of each other and really talk through them in a passionate way, in a way that we're just supporting one another. And yeah, it's just been really neat to be able to do the things that I'm good at and allow other people to take over the things that I'm not so great at, which is why I love that you have this podcast because so much of entrepreneurship is understanding, especially in the beginning when there's not a ton of cash flow, but like understanding what can be let go of so that you have more time to do the things that you really enjoy. And when you have that beautiful balance and you can figure out what that looks like, you allow more to come in. It's just like decluttering, right? Like when you take this and allow someone else to take over it, you're allowing more space in your own life for the things that you love to do.
Yeah, that's been my theme of the year. I've been shedding things that no longer serve me and just creating space and seeing what shows up. Side note, I did order the dish racks for the hack for the bookshelves that you sent to me. That
Yes!
video,
Oh my
I
god, I
ordered
love that.
those. So, yes. But it's funny because like, yeah, sending videos like that back and forth, it doesn't feel like work necessarily. It's literally just sharing. And now we have books on top of that that I send you every Fourth Wing thing that I see because I'm like,
My
I have a
gosh.
friend that's read Fourth Wing. I have to send her all of the things.
Well, and
But
it's
I
hard
do
for
want
me to
to
read another book now because I'm so
know.
invested. I'm like,
I know.
"Zayden, why?"
It's okay. January. We'll have
Anyway,
the next one in Jan I could nerd out on books
yes.
forever. But something else you touched on that, and I knew we were gonna run long. It's no surprise you and I could talk forever. But
Totally.
the mindset and giving people permission to be who they are. And I hadn't really thought about this until you said that, but I was always told I was messy. And my brother was the organized one. Again, he used to literally clean my room in exchange for me doing his homework. Or there was once that he cleaned my room, or no, I wrote a paper and he gave me his stereo in exchange and organized my room. Like we had a nice little barter system in high
That's
school,
beautiful.
right? But always been told that I'm messy. My parents have always said, and I have always been a cluttered human. And part of that is because I have so many things that I love, right? Like, I mean, right in front of me on my desk right now, I have the three books that I'm reading right now. I have crystals, I have my skeletons, I have my instant Polaroid camera, I have my tarot cards. And that sounds like a lot, but like this space makes me so happy because these are all really key parts of who I am. And the first time you came into my space to organize, I told you this, I was so tempted to clean up. I was so tempted to, like, we live off from our kitchen island. That's where we eat, that's where things land when we get in the house. And I was so tempted the night before to clean it up. And then, one, you are such a person that gives people permission to be authentic that I was like, I don't need to do that. But also, I'm doing a disservice to myself for Megs to not walk in here and see how we actually live instead of how I feel like I need to pretend we live. And I don't feel like I'm a messy person anymore. And just because my house will never be Pinterest worthy, my house will never be everything labeled and nothing on a counter, you've helped me realize that that's perfectly fine. My home is lived in. We have our pets, we have a 6-year old. Like, life is chaotic and it is okay for to live in a space that is not Pinterest worthy. So I am very, very appreciative of that. I do want to briefly talk about one more thing because I think it's really important. A lot of organizers, you go to their website, you go to their Amazon storefront, and there are all of these things to buy. All of these baskets and containers and solutions. You don't do that. Why don't you do that?
Oh gosh, it's hard not to.
Hmm.
But, um, I don't do it because they're not solutions unless you've decided what their specific purpose is. So, on Prime Day this year, I did post some products on my page. But before I posted the product, but I gave rules while you were looking at the product. And I was like, "Hey, here's what I like this for, but here are some things to think about before you actually purchase this. One, do you have a space for this to go in? And if you do, have you measured? Does it actually fit there, or are you just buying because you're hopeful?" Because I used to be the one who would, like, measure with my hands and be like, "Well, this is good enough." Um, Now I carry around measuring tape, but it's because I'm a professional and I must make sure. But then it's, do you actually have the budget for this? Have you decluttered the space to see if you actually need something in this space? Or are you just doing this to put stuff in something so it's contained? So it's just for so long, the organizing industry in general, the product portion of it is that, like, buy this thing, it'll be magic. It's going to solve your problem for all of the papers that you have. Buy this thing, it's going to solve your laundry issues. Buy all of these magical plastic containers for your refrigerator, and now you can stock your fridge like they stock them on TikTok. Don't do that. Please don't buy all. I have some of them in my fridge, guilty, but I also have systems in place for each of these things. So I do think, and I have videos about this. I hate organizing products if you're just going to buy them to try to find a solution. I love them if you've figured out a solution and a specific job for that thing. So in my girls' room, I got these baskets from Target and they were only like $5, but they're like pink and green, they're fun colors. And each of them has a specific job for where the girls' things go. So they have a mice collection. So we have mice in one of the baskets. They have the mice collection comes with all these little boxes, and then another basket is for all the boxes, right? So all of these things have a job. But if we're just buying storage containers to buy storage containers, then you're just going to put a bunch of crap, if you will, in these storage containers. People with ADHD, we have what's called doom boxes. And what doom stands for is didn't organize, only moved. And in so many cases, it's actually one of my favorite things to do is people were like, let's just like not go through that when I'm with them organizing. They're like, we'll just do that later. And I'm like, no, you have me, the professional, here with you now. We are going to go through this doom box for you to find places for all these things. But it's overwhelming because we've got a box of all of this stuff that doesn't have anywhere to go. And so what I do is I help people make decisions on things and we break it down, which is hard because if there's 30 items in there, now we've got to really sit down and say like, okay, do you see this little figurine? What's its job? Where does it go? If you were to go look for this, right? And then we can start to sort through and decide what's trash, what doesn't
Yeah.
belong, and what does actually belong, but it belongs in this spot. So I don't know, there's so much that goes into it, but without actually knowing how you live your life, I can't recommend you, honestly, a product that's going to work if I don't know what your life is like, because I want to ask you questions first. Now, I can still recommend like a collapsible laundry basket that's going to fit behind your
Mm,
washer. I love mine and I think it's great. But if you don't like to put your laundry basket away and you keep it somewhere else, then that's not going to work for you. And I don't want you to buy something that you think is going to be a solution for you if you're never going to put your laundry basket away.
yep.
And I think that's where you get to save your money and make the decisions that make sense for you. And I don't think products are the answer. And so I'm going to work with what you have and I'm going to ask you questions and then, I don't know, shop on Facebook Marketplace. I'm all about the reusable stuff when we can find it as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I bought oats overnight and I hated them. Side note. And you walked in my house 2 weeks ago and I was like, Megs, I need you to give me permission to throw these away. Like, and you're like, oh, I can
Yeah.
donate them. It's like, even better. I was like, I hated them. The texture, you also hated them, which made me feel seen.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I
They were
feel like I'm
gross.
supposed to love these. Like, they're supposed to be a solution. But what I'm getting to with that, we donated the oats overnight, which I hope somebody who loves them gets them. But we used that box. I'm looking at it right now for pet medicine. Is it pretty? No. Someone wants to say hi, apparently. She's been rubbing all
Oh,
over me. She
my
adores you.
best
She
friend.
must be like,
I love her
Megs
too.
is, for those of you listening, Keone, my cat, who does not like anyone, literally like jumped up next to Megs one of the first times she was here. So, but ADHD right there. I'm like, oh, cats. I have to show the cat. But we used that oats overnight box to put all my pet meds in. And it's labeled, right? So even though I cannot see everything that's in it, I know that if I need, vetariacin or something for a wound, it's in that box. And again, it isn't pretty. Will I someday hopefully get something prettier? Sure. But if I don't want to, I don't need to. And I love that you don't just push products to push products. So, and I thought how you handled Amazon Prime Day was perfect. I did not buy
Oh, thank you.
well, I bought 2 birthday presents for Elena, but other than that, I did not buy anything that day, and I was very, very proud of myself.
Heck
Alright,
yeah.
you and I could literally talk forever. I am
So
sure we
long.
will do this again, but how can people find you? What's the best way to get in touch with you, to, sign up for your digital or in-person or coaching? How do they find you?
Yeah, well, I think the best way to find me is go to my website, mindfulmegs.com. And from there, you can get in touch with me on social media. My website is, or my email is there that you can email me. It'll also give you a link to my podcast, Organizing an ADHD Brain. I have my schedule right on my website. So if you are interested in digital decluttering, where we work one on one via Zoom, or coaching, that 90-day coaching program, you can just sign up for a spot on my calendar and we can chat through it. I ask a lot of questions just to make sure that I'm the right fit for you. And I think that's really what is important too, because there's so many incredible organizers out there and coaches. And so I really like to make sure that I am the right person and vice versa. But yeah, get in touch. I'd love to chat, even if it's just to share how you're inspired to organize. And if you don't work with me at all, that's okay. Listen to my podcast because I've got a lot of tips and tricks there.
Yeah, and we're doing 15-minute decluttering challenges on Meg's social media, so you can
Yes,
join us in those. I'm not gonna lie, I did not do it this past weekend,
that's
but
okay.
this weekend I'm determined to pick a spot to declutter, because it does feel so much better.
It
So
does.
for everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Your Next Business Bestie. If you want to get a hold of me and you want to find out more about my creative strategy or anything else that I do, you can reach me at jen@jensway.com, or my Instagram is lifejensway, 2 N's on Jen, always. Megs, thank you. Thank you so much. I just love talking to you. And I am honored to have you in my circle and as a friend and a business partner. So thank you so, so much for taking the time to be on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And everybody else, I will talk to you next time on Your Next Business Bestie. Have a great week.